Welcome everybody to the applicant workshop. We're going to give it just another minute while people are joining. As you're being let into the room, you're muted, but we can unmute as we go as people have questions. All right, let's jump in. People are still going to be joining us. Naya, could you nod? Let me know. Can you hear me and see my slides okay? Okay, perfect. Thanks everyone for being here today for the 2025 Neighborhood Star Applicant Workshop. We've got some information to share with you today. The Neighborhood Star program has invested millions of dollars since 1995 into St. Paul. So we're excited to open this next round with all of you. Here's our agenda. We're going to ask everyone to introduce themselves in the chat. There are too many of us to do a live introduction. I will start by introducing myself. I'm Erin Lewis. I'm the program coordinator for the Neighborhood Star program. And then I'll have my team, as they join the slideshow, introduce themselves when they speak. But feel free to put it in the chat who you are, what kind of organization or business you're with. We'd love to know who is here today. Next, we're going to go through some program information, the application process, all the different areas of compliance that could apply to your STAR program or project, how to use Zoom grants, and some additional time for Q&A. We're hoping to wrap this up in an hour. So first, some program information. A little bit of background for anyone who's not aware. The Neighborhood Star program started in 1993 when the Minnesota State Legislature authorized the use of a half-cent sales tax to improve the St. Paul River Center and create the Sales Tax Revitalization or STAR program. Since that time, STAR funds have been used to fund capital activities at the River Center and in St. Paul. For the Cultural STAR program, which is grants to arts and culture organizations in St. Paul, and for the Neighborhood STAR program, which we're talking about today, which is capital improvements in St. Paul neighborhoods. The Neighborhood STAR board is a really important part of the STAR program. Community involvement and participation really matters to us. The mayor appoints 3 people from each ward for the Neighborhood STAR board. And those folks serve as the advisory board to the mayor and the city council. So they will read every proposal, they will do interviews with every applicant, and they will submit their funding recommendations to the mayor and the city council. Here's a picture of some of our board members. I don't know if any of them are joining us today, but they are wonderful people. All right, so we'll jump into the application process. Applications for Neighborhood Star are accepted 1 time per year. So this is the time for 2025 to apply. The application period opened March 31st, so they're currently open right now. They are due Friday, May 2nd at 4 p.m. That deadline is hard and fast. We don't allow any exceptions. We anticipate awarding between $1.9 and $2.5 million this year. That amount fluctuates a little bit just depending on the amount of sales tax revenues we collect. So I advise everyone to go to the website and read all of our guidelines really thoroughly. I will give you some high-level overview here about what Neighborhood Star funds can support. So our guidelines are at stpaul.gov/nstar. And all STAR projects have to be for capital improvements. So that means physical bricks and mortar improvements to the site that you are located at. They must be for a property or a project in St. Paul. You must be an eligible applicant, which includes a public, nonprofit, or for-profit entities located in or doing business in St. Paul. So that's small businesses, nonprofit organizations, etc. City departments, churches, and religious organizations can be eligible as well, but there are some additional criteria. So read the guidelines if you're one of those organizations. All of the improvements must have an expected life of 7 or more years. That's really key to being eligible for this program. And all proposals must be reviewed by the Neighborhood Star Board, like we talked about in that last slide. Anything over $50,000 requires a one-to-one match. So that means if you ask for a grant for $60,000, you need to come in with $60,000 of match. All applications are submitted online via Zoom Grants. You can get to Zoom Grants directly from our website, stpaul.gov/nstar. You'll hear me say that about 100 times today. If you need a little help with your application, the public libraries are a really good resource. They have community specialists who can help you with some translation if that's necessary, help you with technology, just help you with the process. So definitely reach out if that's needed. We really, really, really encourage people apply early just to avoid any like last minute technical or other difficulties. We're really firm on the 4 p.m. deadline. We will talk a little bit more about this. Also be sure that all required attachments are submitted with your application. We'll go over that in more detail, but that's a really important point this year. And we'll go over how to use Zoom Grants later in the presentation. There are a couple of fees involved with the Neighborhood Star program. There's an application fee, which needs to be mailed. Unfortunately, you can't pay that online. That information's on our website. It's $75 for requests up to $25,000 or $125 for anything over that. There's also a 1% closing fee if you're awarded funds. Cheryl, yeah, what's your question?
I wasn't noticing anything in the, I don't know if anyone else can see the contents that you're showing. Wonder if I'm missing something.
Can people see it?
Oh, it must just be me. Never mind then.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I can't see it. Maybe it's my browser.
No, I can't either.
Oh, but other people can see it. Huh.
Yeah, maybe it's our browser then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
these slides will be posted online, so you can see it there. And then this is also being recorded. So if you can't find a way to see it in this presentation right now, I guess I would recommend doing it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm on my phone. I'm on my phone here, and I have to just move forward the slides on my own. Just FYI.
Oh, weird. Okay. But others are okay.
Yes.
All right. All right. Well, we're gonna keep going. I'm sorry for the confusion. Okay. Watch the recording or move the slides on your own. All right. Thanks for the question. I think we're at application fees, 1% closing fee. We'll talk about that a little bit more if you're awarded the funds. One other thing to point out is applications are, again, online, stpaul.gov/nstar. If you want to start on your application, get the language ready before you start putting it in Zoom Grants. Those questions are online. All right, a couple of really important points that are new this year for anyone who is returning to apply for the program. The first, I've mentioned it a little bit, is that all of your attachments must be attached when you submit your application. So in prior years, we've been a little more flexible, saying, you know, if you don't have your application or your attachments, let us know why. And we can be a little flexible on that. This year, we've narrowed down the attachments that you need, and you have to have all of your attachments ready to go with your application. So we're not going to be able to be flexible on that. We'll talk about what those attachments are later in the presentation. Another change this year is staff can no longer assist applicants with amending or correcting your proposals after submission. So again, in the past, we've been able to work with folks to clarify things or clean stuff up. The volume of the program is such that we're just not able to do that anymore. So once you submit your proposal, that's what we're looking at, and that's what we're going to consider. So please just be really careful and thorough when you fill out your proposal. Just a couple points I want to say about that. Again, all your required attachments need to be there, or we won't consider your proposal for funding. Any incomplete proposals will also not be considered. So there are a few tabs in the application process. You'll see that when we go through Zoom Grants. Make sure you fill all of those out. Even if there's a question that does not apply to you, say NA or does not apply, just make sure you fill out the whole thing. Proposals that don't meet eligibility criteria won't be considered. So if you are an entity that isn't eligible, or you are asking for a project that isn't eligible per the guidelines, we can't consider it for funding. And just know that proposals with partial eligibility, so maybe part of your project is eligible for funding and part is not, those may be recommended for just partial funding. And no matter what, the city cannot reimburse with STAR funds anything that's ineligible for the program. So just be aware of that. All of that to say, really, in your proposal, make sure you're asking for STAR funds only for STAR eligible activities. Again, those capital improvements. Okay, required attachments. You've heard me talk about this about 100 times now. Here is the list, and I will share this information with you and also say, give me a call, send me an email, look on the website. If you have questions about any of this, just let me know. The required attachments this year include a completed acknowledgement of compliance form that is downloadable on our website and on Zoom Grants. And that is just a form that says, I understand that there are compliance requirements and that they may apply to my project. The next thing we need is evidence of site control. So that's just something that says you have the ability to modify the site that you're proposing to modify in your proposal. So that could be a title, purchase agreement, a lease agreement, etc. We need evidence that your business or organization is in good standing with the Minnesota Secretary of State. If you don't know how to do that, again, give me a call. I can walk you through it, but you simply need to go to the Minnesota Secretary of State website, take a little screenshot of the place that says you are in good standing. We don't need all of your initial registration documents, just something that says you're in good standing. We need at least one contractor or a vendor estimate. Ideally, an estimate for all of the project elements would be best. Note that you don't have to go with the contractor or the vendor that you include in your proposal. This is just to help us understand that you understand the cost of the project that you're proposing. The next is past 2 years of most recently filed tax returns or audited financials, or for startups, a business plan. Note here that it's just your most recently filed tax returns. So if you haven't done 2024 yet, don't worry about it. Just include 2022 and 2023. Whatever's the most recent. What we're looking for here is just some understanding about your financial need and your capacity to complete the project. We also need a completed W-9. If you don't have that, there is a form for that also on our website, as well as photos of your proposed project or service area. The last two are required if they apply. So if you are getting additional sources of funding for your project, say a foundation grant, we would just want a grant letter that said something to that effect as an attachment. And if you are asking for funds to re-grant for a program, we would need those guidelines. If you're not doing either of those things, don't worry about that. So again, all attachments have to be included. If you have questions, let me know. And again, start gathering these early. I think sometimes this can take a lot of time for the proposal, so do it early so that you don't run into any trouble at the end. Here is our timeline. The Neighborhood Star program is a little bit slow. All of the dates that we have here are anticipated and they could change. But what we are anticipating is we have the application period now through May 2nd. In May, the staff will review all of the proposals to see who's eligible. From there, the board will also review all the proposals and do their interviews. So that should take us through the end of May. In June, the board will make recommendations to the mayor's office and the city council. And then from June, July, August, maybe even into October, the mayor and the council will make their own recommendations and come up with their final funding list. We will notify applicants in November, and we'll do another workshop like this for awardees in November or December. And then we're looking at getting under contract for any funds early next year. So this, like I said, this could change. Maybe things go more quickly with the city council than we anticipate, but we want to be conservative on our estimates and just let people know that's how much time we're looking at before funds are out the door. All right, competitive proposals. Proposals are scored and reviewed across 3 domains. Impact, where excellent proposals will demonstrate how the project will benefit St. Paul, such as advancing public purpose or addressing identified community or neighborhood needs. When we say public purpose, you can see here that means contributing to the tax base, creating or retaining jobs, revitalizing vacant storefront, advancing climate action, contributing to cultural diversity, or advancing equity. We don't expect that projects do all of these things, but whatever things that it does address, put that in your proposal. That would be helpful. The next area is diversity. Excellent proposals will describe a project that will be accessible to and inclusive of diverse residents and add to the cultural diversity of St. Paul. And then finally, ability. Excellent proposals will describe projects that are clearly defined with a realistic plan that could include a timeline and financial support, and that demonstrates the project will be implemented successfully and will remain in place for 7 years and includes community input in development. So this last one is, can you do it? How do you know? There's a total possible points of 20. Again, we don't expect a lot of proposals are going to get all 20 points, but that's the range we're looking at. And again, the Neighborhood Star Board are the folks who are reviewing and scoring based on this matrix. So that informs a ranked list that they create that they then send to the mayor and the city council. I see a question, a couple questions. Take a pause for a couple questions. Can you explain more about the constructor or vendor? So yeah, when we say a construction or vendor estimate, we're talking about an estimate that you would get from somebody who might do the work about how much it could cost, right? So say you're going to upgrade the HVAC in your building. We would want to see something from somebody who does that kind of work saying, we would estimate that it costs $22,000. And then you would just attach that estimate to your proposal. Does that make sense to Hussein, who asked the question? Yes, great. Okay, another question. Our project is slated to start before the funds are distributed. The grant would then replace funds. That would pose a problem, actually. We'll get into it a little bit later. We can't reimburse for anything that happens before the funding is approved. So if we go back to our timeline here, let's say the mayor and the city council get through their recommendations and they take a council vote on the funding on, I don't know, Wednesday in October 15th. Anything October 15th and after would be eligible for STAR funding. Anything that happened before that time would not be. So it is important to know the timeline and plan accordingly. All right, if you are awarded funds, here's where some of that comes into play. Could I repeat that, please? Yep. We'll do it here too. So anything that can be funded with STAR funds has to occur after the funding is approved by the city council. So you will apply, it will go through the board, it will go to the mayor and the council. Whenever the council makes their final vote approving the funds, that's when your work technically could be reimbursed by STAR funds. We really recommend that you wait until you're under contract so that you make sure that you're in compliance with all of the city requirements. We'll go through that in a minute. But technically, the date of that resolution approving the funding is the earliest anything can start for STAR. So you're welcome, Kate. If we're applying for no, you can apply for other grants and STAR grants. You just can't apply for neighborhood and cultural STAR for the same project. Okay, if you're awarded funds, this is kind of related to what I was saying about timing. A couple things to know. Neighborhood STAR is a disbursement and reimbursement grant program. So that means you have to incur a cost before any grant funds are going to be released to you. We're not a program that is able to say, give you $40,000 in one check, if that's what you're awarded. We give out the grant funds as those costs are incurred. Like I said before, there's a 1% closing fee on all awarded funds. So say you get a grant for $50,000, we're going to need the closing fee of $500 before we can disperse any funds. And reimbursements come in through a reimbursement process. We'll go over that a little bit, but they must be for STAR eligible activities. So per the guidelines, whatever is eligible for STAR, that's what we can reimburse for. They must be incurred after the funding is approved by City Council. So again, we're waiting for the council to approve that funding before any work can begin. And reimbursement must include sufficient documentation of expense and be approved by city staff and compliance staff before it's paid out. Requests we ask are submitted once a month until project completion. And for construction, we may retain 5% until the project is done. The process can take up to 4 weeks. We hope it wouldn't take that long. We try really hard to not make it take that long, but just letting you know, from request to a check going out the door, it could be up to a month. Any questions before we move on to the next section?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we have already active support, and we dispersed the amount, and we have not been reimbursed so far. Can we apply for this again?
So you already have a contract that you haven't started?
No, we have started and already dispersed to, but we didn't get reimbursement from you because we didn't finalize requesting.
Yeah. From what you're saying, yes, I think you could apply again.
Yes, thank you.
Yep. All right. If there aren't other questions, I'm going to turn it over for a little bit to my colleague Naya to introduce herself and go through the next few slides.
All right, thanks, Erin. Hi, everyone. I'm Naya Hardiman. I'm a project manager with the Neighborhood STAR team. So like Erin mentioned, the first step, if you are awarded funds, will be to get under contract. And in order to get under contract, you'll be assigned a project manager from the Planning and Economic Development team. And your project manager will be your main point of contact for contract execution, compliance, and then drawing on the funds. They'll have 1 year, up to 1 year after the awards are approved to get under contract. And contracts are good for 2 years. So your project manager will work with you, through the duration of your project. So one of the main pieces of your contract will be the insurance requirements. So the city has a $1.5 million coverage requirement for each occurrence needed before the contract can be approved. But if you are having challenges with getting $1.5 million of coverage, you may want to pursue an umbrella policy for $1 million so that you can get over that $1.5 million threshold. And then if you're using any vehicles on the project, will require you to submit an auto policy. So whether that's a commercial vehicle, we'll need a commercial vehicle policy. And then if you're using any personal autos, we'll need a personal auto policy from you. Businesses with fewer than 10 employees may be exempt from the work comp exemption, from the work comp requirement. And if that's the case for you, then we'll just ask you to fill out a workers' comp exemption form. And then if there's any challenges with meeting the insurance requirements, your project manager will work with you to determine if any waivers are possible. And then if you have any questions, more specific questions about insurance, you can contact the city's risk manager, who is Michael Cowell, at the email listed on the slides. The next big part of the contract is the compliance requirements. So this is a set of rules set by the city to help make sure that all awardees are meeting a set of state, federal, and funder requirements. And we refer to this as compliance. And contract compliance is based on the project type and cost. And compliance requirements related to human rights or labor standards such as minimum wage and insurance are required of all projects, though we'll review the more common compliance requirements today. And it's important to note that compliance may increase the cost of your project, so please plan accordingly, especially with timelines and with costs. So as we go through this today, if you have any questions, please make sure that you ask. All right, and then I'm going to pass it off briefly to our Human Rights and Equal Economic Opportunity team, otherwise known as HERO. But before we do that, there's a couple questions in the chat. The first is, if we're applying for other grants, does this reduce our ability to obtain STAR grants? No. And then what is the maximum amount to apply for? Erin, did you want to answer this? Or Kim?
Sure. Yeah, there's not technically a maximum, but the program is unlikely to award more than 50,000. So you can ask for whatever you would like, knowing how much we're going to give away, but we don't typically grant more than 50. If we are located in a hub center that has multiple orgs, yes, they could apply. So the question is, if we are located in a hub center that has multiple orgs, all using the same address, can each org apply separately for the grant? You could if there were really clear delineations of the space that you were improving, right? But we'd probably need whoever was the owner of the site to work with us to make that really clear. So what we couldn't do is have a bunch of people applying to improve the same site with the same activities, if that makes sense. And yes, 50,000 is the amount that we typically don't grant higher than. All right, we'll turn it over to Alicia for the next couple slides.
Hello and good afternoon. My name is Alicia Tao. I'm a labor standards investigator with the HERO Department, or Human Rights and Equal Economic Opportunity. Just wanted to go over a couple of slides with you all as you do business in the city of St. Paul. So we're going to shift perspective just a little bit. We're going to focus on the employer relationship with the employee. So I'm just going to touch on a couple of our ordinance here. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me afterwards. So we're just going to do a high level overview and we're going to go quickly through here. I do believe the presentation is 1 hour, so I want to honor that. Regarding there are many divisions in our department, and one of them is human rights. And we do investigate the discriminations for certain protected classes. So you can see, I'm not going to read through all of them, but there are different discrimination cases that we, have seen in our office where it's directly from the St. Paul businesses who are also, very interested in applying for these grants or have received grants. And so I want to just emphasize that these are some of the protected classes. If you have any questions regarding what is allowed or what is not allowed, or the concerns or problems you have, would encourage you to reach out directly to our human rights team to talk to them about your concerns. And we can go to the next slide here. So within the labor standards division itself, there are 3 ordinances. We have wage theft, but that is a new ordinance that started as of January 1st of 2025. We've had earned sick and safe time that has been in place since 2017, and the minimum wage that started in 2020. So if you have employees, these are some ordinances that you should be paying attention to, making sure that you are paying allow employees to accrue, earn sick and save time, and also paying the correct minimum wage. Again, I'm just going to go high level. If you have any questions, we are happy to talk to you about any of your concerns or questions that you have in regards to working with employees. The next slide, please. If you take a look at our minimum wage slide here, we're broken down into 4 business categories. And as you can see that they are shrinking, but we have macro, which is 10,000 plus employees, large 101 employees to 10,000, small is 6 employees to 100 employees, and then micro 5 or fewer employees. As the years, because this started in 2020, so over the years, the mayor's plan was to roll out the minimum wage rate, right? So over the years, it increased. And so regarding the business sizes, it will eventually roll into what we're calling a city rate, which is that 1597 that you see across macro and large. And that the goal is that everyone will eventually reach certain rates, that the city will reach one rate eventually, right? But then currently, depending on the category that you identify with, there are different rates at this time. And so the 2 dates that you need to be concerned about is July 1st of 2025 and January of 2026. So there has already been a bump as of January 1st, but in July there will be another bump, and then as of January 1st, 2026, there will be another bump, an increase to the rate. So if you have questions about which category do I identify with, we would be happy to get on the phone and talk to you about that as well. So if you have any questions, again, we want to ensure that employers are paying the correct rate, not discriminating, and also really providing sick time that is allowed, that is mandated for the employees to have in the city of St. Paul, also in the state of Minnesota, that they are also accruing and available for the employees to use. So here's some contact information. I believe the PowerPoint will be sent to you. So if you have any questions, please reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then Aaron, it looks like we've got one more question in the chat. Does this grant cover the cost of a catering vehicle if needed?
It would not. So a vehicle is something that we would consider to be not permanently affixed, so not stuck to wherever it's being improved. So no, a vehicle would not be an eligible expense. Thanks, Naya.
Are there any other questions before we get into affirmative action? All right, well, feel free to put them in the chat if they come up. But one of the main compliance requirements is affirmative action. So awardees, vendors, and or developers that have a contract with the city for $50,000 or greater are required to have a certified affirmative action plan, or AAP. So affirmative action plans and workforce participation goals apply to construction projects, and there's a $75 fee to certify AAPs, and that certification is good for 2 years. Project managers must ensure that an AAP has been certified before they can route any of your contracts, and an active AAP is required in order to release any payment. If you believe that you already have an AAP certified with the city, you can check the AAP Open Data Portal or contact YATAO. And there are no exemptions for the affirmative action plans for nonprofits, vendors without employees, LLCs, etc. And then here's the contact information for YATAO. So one of our next compliance requirements, and this is probably our most common compliance requirement, is prevailing wage. Oh, okay. So prevailing wage will apply if your project involves any kind of construction work, and then if you're receiving any amount of public money, if the total project cost meets or exceeds $25,000, and then if your project has any federal money involved in it, so even $1 of federal money, the threshold is much lower at $2,000. And I just wanted to note that even if you request less than $25,000, if your total project cost is $25,000 or greater, prevailing wage will apply. So I guess we should back up a little bit and discuss what prevailing wage is. Prevailing wage is like a minimum wage for construction workers. Your contract with the city will contain a list of specific wage rates that your contractors must pay their employees for various types of construction workers. And if prevailing wage is triggered, your project contractors will need to make sure that they're paying those rates provided in the contract, and that they will have to report those rates, which we'll talk about later on. So what do you have to do for prevailing wage? When you're looking for contractors, make sure to tell them as soon as possible that your project will have prevailing wage apply. So if you're estimating that your project will be anywhere close to $25,000 or greater, go ahead and mention this to your contractor when you're soliciting bids, just so that they can provide you with the most accurate cost estimate to better support your funding request application for the STAR program. But it's important to note that it's a prevailing wage project because most contractors are familiar with prevailing wage, but some don't like working on prevailing wage projects just because it requires more reporting on their end. So like I said, make sure that you include all of the paperwork and pay rates to your contractor as soon as you get it from the city, and make sure that your contractors are submitting their prevailing wage reporting requirements to the city as well, because if they fail to submit or if they fail to pay those rates, it will delay your payment or prevent that payment from being made to you. And then any work that's occurring on the site of your STAR project, so even if it's not being funded by STAR dollars, if it's occurring at the same time as your STAR project, prevailing wage may apply to that as well. But if you have any more questions about prevailing wage in particular, ahead of your application, you can feel free to contact the contract compliance email, which is listed on the screen. And here's that again. So another compliance requirement is our vendor outreach program, otherwise known as VOP. And this applies to projects who have been awarded more than $50,000. So it's a set of business inclusion goals with 25% overall, with sub goals of 5% to minority-owned businesses, 10% to women-owned businesses, and 10% to other small business enterprises. And businesses that are, that you're soliciting bids from that meet these requirements are going to be listed on the certification directory. Mouthful. Certification. So businesses must be CERT certified to count towards those VOP goals. And like all of the compliance requirements, all of these will be discussed further at a pre-construction meeting. So in order to access the CERT directory, you can click the link on the screen. And essentially the requirement is that you solicit bids from CERT certified businesses and that you keep record of those bids and your recorded responses with those vendors. And then you should include your VOP specs to all subcontracts, and payment recording link is on the screen as well. And even if VOP is not going to apply to your project, we still recommend that you check out the CERT directory. It's essentially the city's list of preferred vendors. So it's a good place to start looking for contractors if you haven't started that process already. Because I'll say it again, you're going to have to submit a contractor or vendor estimate with your proposal. So make sure that you're soliciting those bids now. And then we encourage all small and local businesses to become CERT certified. It's free and it's good for 3 years. So if you have any questions about that, you can contact the CERT program directly. And then here's the contact information for VOP and for the CERT list as well. All right, I'm going to pass it back to Erin.
Thanks, Naya. And I see that we've got some questions. Let me run through these next couple areas of compliance, and then we'll get to some questions. So I see you. We'll get there. All right. So Minnesota Business Subsidy Law is another part of compliance. It requires that a business receiving a state or local government assistance, like a grant, must have a defined public purpose, and recipients must set goals for job creation, wages, and benefits to be achieved within 2 years of receiving assistance. Business subsidy applies to anyone receiving $25,000 or more in grant funds, unless you fall within this exemption category, which is mainly nonprofits. There's annual reporting required from the city to the state around business subsidy. So in your contract and the attachments, we will ask you some really pointed questions that relate to business subsidy. Just one other thing to note, this is pretty rare, but if you get an award of $150,000 or more, there will be additional requirements such as a public hearing and more specific wage and job goals to be attained. If you have questions about business subsidy, Jenny Wolf is our debt administrator, and she would be your contact. Here's her information. Additionally, St. Paul Living Wage Ordinance. This applies to recipients receiving $100,000 or more in a city business subsidy, unless you qualify for an exemption. Again, that's mostly nonprofits and small businesses. What this says is that recipients must pay a living wage to each employee who is employed at the location where the grant is awarded for the longer of 3 years or the term of the STAR grant agreement. The living wage is calculated January of each year. Here are the 2025 rates. It's 130% of federal poverty for a family of 4, if it's just the wages, or 110% of the federal poverty level if there are health benefits provided. There is an annual certification process demonstrating compliance as well if this applies. Again, it's pretty rare, but just want to put it out there for folks to be aware of. And Jenny Wolf, again, is our contact if you have questions about that. Next, I'm going to have Kurt talk to us a little bit about Sustainable Building Ordinance.
Thank you, Erin. Kurt Schultz, Planning and Economic Development. I manage the Sustainable Building Ordinance for the City of St. Paul. Mayor Carter and the City Council are committed to reducing or minimizing the environmental footprint of the city, and they do that through a number of means internally to the operations of the city itself, like making our buildings more energy efficient. But we also want to be sure that when the city invests in other projects, that they too are as sustainable as possible. I'll keep this short because the trigger for the sustainable building ordinance is $200,000. And as Aaron said, they're unlikely to fund projects over $50,000. But if a project receives more than $200,000, the sustainable building policy or ordinance will apply. It applies to new construction and rehab. It requires that each project be certified through one of several eligible green building standards, such as LEED or Green Communities or B3. And then in addition to compliance and certification through a green building standard, they must also comply with the St. Paul overlay, which is a list of another 8 items such as indoor environmental quality and stormwater management and construction waste diversion that must be complied with as well. And I think, oh yeah, so it applies to, as I said, $200,000 or more, and that's all sources of public funding. So it's money that you might get from the city, the state, Met Council. If those dollars come through the city, they contribute to that $200,000 threshold. Okay, Aaron. And that's my contact information. Please give me a call if you have questions. With regard to this requirement, it's really important that I be notified very early in the design process. It becomes complicated and expensive if work gets done before understanding the requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. So that was our compliance section. It's a lot of information. We'll take a little pause, answer some questions, and then go into our Zoom grants presentation. I'm going to go over to the chat for questions. Is outdoor work on trees, including removal and trimming for safety, eligible? Possibly. Trees or anything like that, give me a call and we can talk through what the details are. Anything in that realm has to still fall within the like permanently affixed and will last for 7 years categories. So it gets a little tricky sometimes with plants. So give me a call. Would a bus purchase to serve my organization not be eligible for grant funds? That's right. Again, it's not permanently affixed. And even though I know a lot of definitions of capital would include something like a bus or big pieces of equipment, Neighborhood Star right now does not. So the definition is permanently affixed with a lifespan of 7 or more years. So vehicles are out. What happens if the business is closed down or sold before 7 years? That's a good question. We are looking for evidence that the improvement itself will last for 7 years, whether or not the business does, right? So if you were putting in a new parking lot, presumably if you were to close your business or sell it to somebody else, that parking lot would still be there in 7 years. So things like that are what we are looking to fund. I know it's hard to predict the future. And of course, we would love for you to just be in business for 7 or more years. But that's how we look at those instances. Does the grant cover kitchen equipment? I would say generally the grant does not cover equipment because equipment can often be movable, just like vehicles. The exception would be if it can be permanently affixed to the site. So we have definitely funded like walk-in coolers that are built in, things like that. So again, there's a little bit of discretion. I would say generally equipment is not something that we fund unless it's permanently affixed. Naya, it looks like maybe you answered the next question. Can we still get all the funds if we don't meet all the VOP requirements? And as Naya is explaining here, yeah, you are required to demonstrate good faith efforts in soliciting bids. Good questions. Anything else before we move on? And next up is Jennifer Yost is joining us from Zoom Grants to do a little demonstration on how to use Zoom. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that she can share hers. Jennifer, are you here? Yeah, there you are.
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jennifer Yost, and I am the Zoom Grants account manager with the city. And Erin has asked me to participate and provide you a walkthrough of Zoom Grants where you're going to be submitting your application. So I'm going to go through a presentation. This presentation is on the city's website, so you'll always be able to go back to it so you don't have to scribble as we're going through. And then I'm actually going to go through a live demonstration of submitting an application so you can see how it works. For those of you that have used Zoom Grants in the past, there are some differences and new features that came out this year, so I am going to highlight those, but just wanted to go through and give you this information. So let me share my screen. And so you should be seeing how-to guide for applicants. Can I get a nod head that you're actually seeing that?
Yep.
Fabulous. Okay. So just a few things to start out with. First, Zoom Grants University is our online knowledge base. It is your user guide for you to be able to troubleshoot and learn more information about Zoom Grants. Is through the help link that is at the top of any application, but it's also a link on the city's website, so you can access it without even getting into Zoom Grants. Zoom Grants has an autosave feature, so you will not find a save button. So whenever you change a field or click outside a field, you'll see a flashing save screen. But please note, this is the internet, and we all know we've seen the internet blink and have ups and downs, and everybody getting on when there's a snow day. That was a little crazy this year. So if it is on a saving screen longer, it is not saving. So if you double click out and then wait for your internet to reconnect and then do the saving again. So clicking back in, making a change, and clicking out. We do run on a tab system to set apart the different sections of the features of the system. So you'll be able to click into each of the tabs to access the different content that's housed there. Zoom Grants also has a double check for the application, making sure that it is complete. It's going to make sure that every question has an answer, even if the answer is this question does not apply or not applicable, and that every document that is required is also uploaded. Now, as Erin said, that there are some documents that only apply for certain projects. So make sure to read all of those document requests to make sure you're uploading everything for your specific project, because if it's not there, you didn't follow the rules. So first thing is you have to have an account. So if you don't already have an account, you'll go to the city's website, click on that start an application, and we'll take you to the landing page for the city. You'll be able to create an account. This is also how those with existing accounts can return and be able to input their email and password from prior years to be able to apply. And I do want to say is don't go to Zoom Grants to find the program or the application. It's not on our website. We do not maintain it. You do have to go to the city's website. So once you get into the application, we run on a tab system. You're going to see two rows of tabs. So this top row, which you see is an A, is going to be the application instruction information, where you're going to know who to contact for the application if there's any announcements that's coming from the city through Zoom Grants. The second row, which is B, is going to be the actual application for the application tabs for this application and each of the components that you need to answer. The summary tab is going to be your first tab that you do have to complete. This is required. This is where you're going to give your title, how much you're requesting, and it's going to have your applicant info, your contact information for you and your organization. And that's also where you're going to be able to invite others to help you on the application. So if you have someone from your finance team who's going to actually help you fill out the budget, and you're going to have someone else help upload the documents, all of you can be in the application and be able to provide that information. And I will show you where that is on the live demonstration. I'm not going to talk about the pre-application because this program is not using it, but it is in the presentation if you want to go back and read it. But the application tab, this is where you're going to find the bulk of the content. And you do need to answer every question. If you have failed to answer a question, the system will not let you submit. All of the questions are required, even if the answer is not applicable. The budget tab. This is where you're going to put in the information about your budget, your project. You're going to provide the information about how you're going to use the STAR funding and how you're going to use other funding if you have match for it. This is also where we have a new feature. Within the budget tab, you will actually now have to certify that you completed the budget, because not all cells are required in a budget because you are not doing acquisitions, so you're going to leave that blank. So you are going to certify that you have completed the budget, and that is actually going to be used in that completion check. Table tabs is not being used in this project, so I am going to skip over in this program, so I am going to skip over that. Go right to the documents. Documents tab is where you're going to upload all of your documents. Some are going to be marked as required because they're required for every project, regardless of what it is. Other documents are going to be required based upon your project. So make sure you read that description. You're going to be able to upload as many documents as needed for those. So if you have multiple pictures, you can upload multiple pictures into that spot. Submitting your application. Once you're done with your application, you're going to be able to click that Submit Now button. And that's going to start that completion check, making sure everything that's marked as required of everybody is going to be answered or uploaded. And if it is everything that's there, you will be initialing and certifying that you have completed the application. If you do not see a Submit button, that is because you are what is known as a collaborator. You are not the applicant owner. You're not the application owner. You have been invited by the applicant owner to complete and help with the application, but you do not have the authority to actually submit it. So knowing what role you are is really important. Only the applicant owner will be able to submit. We get that question a lot that comes into our support team of going, I need to submit, I need to submit. Well, it's because you're a collaborator and not allowed to. So making sure what role you are. You can always return to your application. You do not have to complete it in one setting. So once you've created that application, you can come back to it the next day and continue to work on it. You do not have to create another one. Please note, when you do go back to log back in, you need to go to https /zoomgrants.com. The S is really important. That is the certification link that tells the systems and the internet that it is a certified site, it's under security, and allows you to actually look at the documents. If you do not have that S, it will not all the features will work, and you will not be able to download documents. So making sure that you go to that website when you're returning to log in. When you are returning to log in, you're going to go to the incomplete applications. That's where you're going to see everything that you have not completed. And submitted is once you have submitted. Once the city has made their determination, you'll find it under the approved or the declined. Accessing the application, just talked about it, sorry. How to archive or delete an application. So this is, if you've accidentally created a second application and you want to get rid of it, you're going to archive it first. When you archive it, you're removing it from view of that you even created one from the city. So they will not be able to help you. They cannot actually archive it themselves, only you can. And then you can then permanently delete it. It is a two-step process to make sure that just in case you can recover any archived, but once it is permanently deleted, it's permanently deleted. Zoom grants can't even recover it. Some tips: save yourself stress, start early, finish early, and submit early. When you got so many people that are trying to submit at the same time into the same program, it can bog down the system. There's also internet issues. You can have a big rainstorm that happens. Anything that could impact your internet is something to keep in mind. So start early, finish early. You can always reach out to Zoom Grants. Go to ZGU or our support team and ask questions about technical issues. If you're asking programmatic questions, such as, is this eligible? Can I use the funding for that? Please reach out to the city, not us. If you do contact us, we will refer you back to the city and you'll be playing phone tag, which can become frustrating. we cannot answer any programmatic questions. And technical questions. Zoom Grants University is going to be your friend. There's going to be lots of articles on how to use. You can also contact our support team at questions@zoomgrants.com. And with that, I'm actually now going to go to the application, actually submit an application and show you how it works. So the first thing is you're going to go to Neighborhood Star Program. Some of you may also be applying for the Cultural Star, so make sure you're going to the correct one. They are two separate applications. So you're going to click that Start Your Application Now. But before I do that, I want to show you some of the information that is on the city's website, just so you know. I'm going to scroll all the way down, and you're going to actually find Zoom Grants Technical Assistance documents right here. So this is a copy of the presentation I just gave, as well as a step-by-step applicant instructions of how to create your account if you haven't created one already, and a link to Zoom Grants University. So you don't even have to get into the system to have access to this information. It's already available on the city's website. And thank you, City. I'm so happy that's there. I'm going to tell all of my other clients to do that. So you're going to click that Start Your Application Now. And what that will do is take you to the landing page for this program within Zoom Grants. And so what you're going to see your open programs, the Neighborhood Star. For existing applicants, you'll be able to come here and put your email and your password and log in. If you've forgotten your password, you can do your own self-recovery. You do not have to reach out to us or the city. If you are new, you're going to put in your email. Your email is your user ID. You're going to have password, first name, last name, and click that new account. Once you've created your account, you're going to be able to click that apply. You can also click that preview to see what the application looks like within the system and not just the PDF that was put on the city's website. Click that apply now, and it's going to take you to the application. I already started one while everybody was presenting, so this information will be available. At the top, as you can see, is those tabs for instructions. You also have Zoom Grants Help. These will take you to Zoom Grants University of the common questions that we get. But you're going to start on the summary. This is where you're going to put in your application title. You can see that saving screen that comes up, and it's going to flash there for a few moments. And once it's done, that has saved it. And now I'm going to put in the amount I'm requesting. I'm just putting 30,000. I did name it a test application, so the city knows this is fake. The applicant information is auto-populated when I set up my account. The organizational information as well, and my CEO. So when I set up my account, that information is there. If it is blank and I type over, it will populate it across all applications created. So if you are applying for 2 applications, it will auto-populate. It also will change any information. So if you executive director has changed since last year when you applied for the cultural program, you'll have that information. The bulk of the questions are going to be in the application questions. Do not leave any answer blank. You do have to answer everything. There are character limits as well, and there is a character counter, so you do have that available. Please be aware that copying and pasting directly from Word, if you have formatted your Word responses, can impact and negatively impact Zoom Grants and any database because there are hidden characters in formatting. So make sure that you're removing that formatting, pasting plain text, not having formatting when you're writing up your answers beforehand, copying it into Notepad to remove the formatting, anything necessary to get away from the bullets, bolds, italicized, underlines, that doesn't work. Also, letters, numbers, symbols, spaces, even carriage returns are characters, so they do count in that character limit. So the first questions you're going to come to is 1 through 5 is kind of your own self-screening. You need to be able to answer yes to all of them. If you're answering no, you may want to consider if this is the right funding and reaching out to the city and having a conversation. In your questions, you're going to have sentence responses with 255 characters. It does count down your characters. You have paragraph style. Each one of the paragraph styles will have a different character limit set by the city, and it will count it down for you. So you can pay attention and know how close you are to meeting that character limit. We have check boxes, which are check all that apply. And please, understand that you have where is the proposed site, where is the planning district, and you have all that information. But check all that apply, answer each of those questions. I believe you have a multiple choice as well. Multiple choice, you can only answer one or the other. Again, do not leave any box without an answer, even if it's not applicable. And so down here, yeah, we've got some multiple choices here. You can only answer one. It will not allow you to answer multiples. The shape of those boxes are important. So circles are multiple choice. Squares are check all that apply. And you can tab through at the top, or you can click this next button, and this will take you to the next one, which is the budget. You have your instructions for the budget. So you have your sources that you're supposed to input, the amount that is secured and the amount that's pending. I'm going to put in the 30,000 that I requested. So that's that first one. And so some of those descriptions are been provided by the city, and others are others, which and they have instructed you to overwrite those as necessary. And then you've also got your uses down here. Then you have your budget narrative. So I just want to provide this, that you can use some types of form. You can do simple formatting, providing numbers, all capitals, asterisks, hyphens to help you format, but don't let Word auto format for you, please. This certification right here at the bottom of the budget, you are certifying that you've completed the budget and budget narrative. You're going to put in your name. If you do not do this, the system will not allow you to submit. It actually will pop up a box that says certify your budget, certify your budget. So it won't even allow you to hit that submit button. Your documents. You're going to upload all the required documents. Please also pay attention to ones that apply to you. If you're doing your sub loans or sub granting program, all of that information is there. I've left one not uploaded specifically because I want to show you what that completion does when everything's not complete. I'm going to hit that submit now. So what's going to happen is it's going to come up and say some fields are missing. It's going to tell you which field. So if you're missing answers and numbers, it's going to tell you those numbers, and it's going to say some required documents are requested. What I'm going to go here is I'm going to upload a document, and this is exactly how you do it normally. I'm going to open this up a little bit. You're going to give it a name. You're going to choose your file from your computer. And then you're going to click that upload now. As you can see, you have lots of document extensions you can use: Excel, Word, JPEGs, TIFFs, a variety of different stuff. Please note, file size is limited to 4 megabytes. You might be able to get over a little bit. So if it's a very large document, think about splitting it into 2 documents, calling it part 1, part 2, so the city knows what it is. You will get a confirmation that the document has been uploaded at the top in red. Close that window. And you're going to see this list will be updated when your page refreshes. So when I do a refresh, it's going to take me back to that summary tab, which is standard. It always does that. And I'm going to go back to those documents, make sure that it's there. And now I'm going to click that Submit Now button. Now that everything is there, I'm going to initial that I have read all of this certification. You're certifying that you're allowing Zoom grants to share the information with the city, and you are certifying that you understand the city's rules and requirements and about the Privacy Act. So I'm going to add mine there. Submit now. Once you have submitted the application, it's locked, it's done. You can't go back and edit. So as Erin said, they're not going to allow for that assistance afterwards. You're going to get confirmation that the application is submitted. You will also receive a confirmation email from notices@zoomgrants.com. So make sure you add that to your whitelist so you get those emails and it doesn't go into your junk. You can also download a PDF. After the fact, you can always return to your My Account page by logging back into Zoom Grants. You'll be able to see where your application is. So it's not going to be an incomplete because I've actually submitted, but this is where you would find your application if you started it but did not finish it. But you're going to find it under the submitted, and you're going to see that I've got 2 that I started. I've got the cultural and the neighborhood, and it's right there. You're going to see when it was created, the date, and you'll be able to actually check on that status as well. Any questions? If there's no questions, then I'll hand it back to you, Erin.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Really appreciate it. All right, just a couple more slides from us. I realize we are at time. So if folks need to hop off, you are welcome to do that. And this will be recorded and you can catch up later, but I will still be here to answer some questions and just show you a couple more little things. Once this loads. Sorry, it's just not moving very fast. And I'll think of your questions right now. Navigate. Additional resources. Like Jennifer pointed out and showed you, our website is a really good resource. So check it out, stpaul.gov/nstar, stpaul.gov/cstar if you're interested in Cultural Star as well. You'll find all sorts of things there, our guidelines, FAQs, this recording, sample contracts, some videos of other projects, application questions, lots and lots of stuff on there. So check out our website anytime. The HERO or HREEO website is also really great. You heard a lot about compliance today. It can be a little bit confusing in a lot of detail, so I encourage you to check out that website as well. Here is some contact information for staff. So Naya and I were able to talk with you a bit today. Please contact any of us if you have questions. Me and Nancy are probably your first call to answer any questions. And then Naya and Grace are project managers who will be working with anyone who gets awarded funds and also available to help. And with that, I will leave space for any additional questions while we're looking at these lovely photos of projects that we're really proud to have been a part of. So Turbo Tim's, Nancy's Hair and Beauty Salon, Barbecue Korean Fried Chicken, Cats and Coffee, and Little Africa Plaza are all featured here. All got grants in the past and have done some really wonderful things. Any questions that we haven't answered yet?
I'm sorry, I might be a little late. I thought it was at 2 o'clock.
Oh,
But I'm sorry. I'm not sure if you answered it already, but is there a difference between Neighborhood Star and Cultural Star?
there is. Yeah,
Okay.
so Neighborhood Star is only for capital improvements. So permanently affixed kind of construction related improvements to a site. Cultural Star is for arts and culture organizations and events.
Okay.
And Cultural Star had their workshop earlier today, so that will be uploaded onto their website shortly as well, if you want to check that out.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. What happens? Oh, so we answered this question. What happens if a business is closed down or sold before 7 years? We can answer it again. We are primarily funding any improvements that will last for 7 or more years, even if the business itself would not for some reason. So again, we are looking for improvements that would outlast a business if you were to close or move, like a parking lot, or improvements to the building that would remain with the building, no matter who owned it. Other questions? All right. If you do have questions, if you think of something for me or for any of my colleagues, please let us know. Give me a call, send us an email. Like we said, this information will be on our website, so you can contact any of us. You can contact Zoom grants, and we are happy to help you get through the process and look forward to reading a lot of really great proposals. Thanks so much for being here today. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.